Mustafa, speaking about reviving or repairing the relations between Turkey and Israel, as the Marmara, the Israeli report on the Marmara affair have been published, and there were the reactions here, and also I read some reactions in Turkey. Is there a way to repair the relations? Are the relations with Israel as important in Turkey as they were in Israel? Or should we wait and put them on hold?
There is a way to, I think, mend the relations, but from the point of the Turkish government, it is possible that only Israel issues an apology for the deaths of Mavi Marmara. They made it clearly that that's the condition from the Turkish side. Because I know, Turks and Israelis have different perspectives on what happened on Mavi Marmara, but I think in Turkey it's almost a national view that there needs to be an apology because civilians on the ship lost their lives. I just should remind that before Mavi Marmara, or before the Operation Cast Lead in Gaza, the current government in Turkey had no anti-Israeli position, or
No. We were witnessing the confrontation between the incident in Davos.
Okay. Davos came after Operation Cast Lead in Gaza.
Yes.
So until 2008, Tayyip Erdogan's Justice and Development Party came to power in 2002. So from 2002 to 2008, Erdogan visited Israel. He boosted trade between two countries. He criticized anti-Semitism in Turkey many times. He welcomed Jewish or Israeli business, particularly, to Turkey. So he actually made an effort to, and let's not forget that the Turkish government was talking with Assad and the Israeli Prime Minister Olmert to reach a deal between those two countries. Now, there is no good relations between any of these capitals now. I mean, Assad is a whole different story. Unfortunately, that didn't work either. But I'm just trying to say that ideologically, it is not impossible for the current government. Not at all. I mean, they can be good terms with Israel. But the Operation Cast Lead and the civilian casualties there created an uproar in Turkish society, and Erdogan voiced it in very strong terms, maybe too strong terms, but that was the case. And that initiated a tension, and ultimately it culminated in Mavi Marmara, which, minimized the relationship. Let me also remind one thing, though. There was another time that Turkish-Israeli relations were degraded to the current level, and that was in 1982 when Israel annexed Jerusalem. And the military government in Turkey at the time, which was not Islamist or anything, it was the secular military. But because since there is a pro-Palestinian sentiment in Turkish society in general, not necessarily not anti-Israel, but strongly pro-Palestinian, they degraded the relationships to the current level, and they were raised to the ambassadorial level only in 1991 when the Madrid peace talks began. So this happened before. I hope that Israel and Turkey will have great relations again.
Do you get the feeling that once there is an apology which is accepted in Turkey, then everything will go to the old route?
I think that will change the whole dynamic. Because Erdogan repeatedly has said, that's what we demand. Erdogan's advisors have said that. And I can say that maybe Erdogan is not the most sympathetic leader in Turkey towards Israel, but he's also pragmatic enough not to continue a disconnect with Israel. But the Mavi Marmara incident has been so important in Turkey. I know it's important in Israel too, so I'm just saying this is the view from the Turkish side, that no government in Turkey can say we're walking away from that and raising the relations. Maybe another government can say that, but I don't foresee another government coming to power, at least in the elections of 2014, because of the continued electoral success of the AKP. So I think an apology on Mavi Marmara would be a way to mend the relationships, which I hope to see. I hope to see Israel and Turkey having great relationships again.
Sharif, where money? Let's speak about money. I think that people in Egypt have not been working for the last 18 months, since January 2011. the deficit is growing, the booth is collapsing, and people are complaining about the economic deterioration of economic situation. Now, if this crisis is going to be more stronger, it will explode in everybody's face. Within the Islamic color of the regime, where will the money come from? Where do you see the solution?
Well,
you see investors coming back, tourists.
I think we have not seen the worst yet. We have been living off our savings and our reserves, signaling to the population that economically everything is fine. I mean, they manifested in the protection of the exchange rate. This is the single most important indicator right now. The protection of the exchange rate of the Egyptian pound versus the dollar had come at the expenses of pushing the economy to the limit of its rating, international rating. It's declined 3 times. The sovereign rating of the country, I mean, the economy. The fact that we have now almost depleted our reserves. We should imagine very soon that there will be a depreciation of the Egyptian pound, and that you will see in a very, very severe way reflected on food prices and basic commodities. Subsidy bills will go up. I mean, we have not seen the result yet. The new government will have to deal with it. Now, foreign direct investment as an answer, as a fix, I don't believe so. It's a complete fallacy to imagine, or tourism for that matter, complete fallacy to imagine that this will be a normal recovery, fixable in the short term. It will take time to recover to rebuild confidence into the economy. International investment has so many options now. Why would they go to Egypt? However, there is, I mention this all the time, so it's not a self-promotion, but there's a project I'm working on in Egypt with a Peruvian economist by the name of Hernando de Soto. And we have started this work some time back. The simple message is there is an enormous amount of wealth in the country, in the hands of Egyptians who are working
inside Egypt.
Inside Egypt, assets.
Still.
Assets that are existing and in the informal economy. And the informal economy is huge. When we finished the first study in 2001, the estimates were $250 billion at that time. Now, last October, I invited Hernando back to Egypt. We started doing some updating, and we're working to relaunch the work that we had initially wanted to do in Egypt. And the current estimate of the assets held by Egyptians, and that's an informal economy, meaning that it's money circulating in the system outside of the law, representing 80% of the economy. I mean, this is huge, and I'm talking about housing and business mainly. Housing assets and small businesses that are employing thousands and millions of Egyptians. And the estimate of these assets currently in 2012 is $400 billion that exist within. Now, they're very simple, it's a very complex process, but the simple formula is a reform system, a legislative reform that will move these huge assets from outside of the law, from its extra legal status, to encourage it to voluntarily become part of the formal system.
But let me ask you a question which is troubling me. Israel is indulged now with the job seekers from Africa, Ethiopia, Sudan, Eritrea, and so on. Do you see a possibility that hungry Egyptians will become job seekers in Israel as well?
No, not to the risk. I mean, of course, there could be, but it's not going to be to the extent that it becomes a risk. I mean, we have Europe. Egyptians are more likely to go to Europe.
We are
yeah, so you will
neighboring
have some,
country.
You will have some, but it's not a very easy. We have a wall now coming up, so it's not going to be easy. But no, I mean, I'm saying that in a realistic way. I mean, in a friendly way, in an objective fashion. It is not the most attractive option for Egyptians to come and live here.
I have a secret to tell you. I have a secret to tell you. There is a community of Egyptians living in Israel.
I know.
Job
No,
seekers.
I know. Yeah, but there's not a risk. Since I have the microphone, can I answer an earlier question to add to what Dennis was saying? And I say this hoping to make a positive impact. I am perplexed at the ability of Israeli government to rule or to govern and to make policy by paranoia. It's impossible that up till now, after so many years, proving your military might and your ability to fend through very difficult, hostile, different types of attacks, from military to other religious or ethnic and racist hostility that comes from the region. For me, it is really perplexing and frustrating that Israel still has to feel the paranoia it feels today. I am fundamentally and deeply convinced.
If you were in our place, surrounded by Islamic regimes, how would you?
I understand the source and the history behind it, but it is I'm saying this because it's for the own good of Israeli society to start to find safer grounds beyond paranoia. It's impossible that you can live in the neighborhood with this kind of paranoia. And there are strategic reasons why you should move out of this. And one of them was mentioned by Dennis. The evolution of the region here is going to define a new relationship between Israel and its neighbors. And I am also, if I may take the chance also, I'm very disturbed by what Henry Kissinger said yesterday by saying that recognition of the Israeli state is not sufficient for peace, reflecting, of course, he is mentioning or referring to the Arab Peace Initiative. I would add to Dennis's recipe this morning, the 6 steps on both sides in confidence building. I would add, please consider the Israeli Peace Initiative, which you know about, and I'm sure many Israeli people know about, not sufficiently.
Officially, Israel is not responding yet.
The Israeli Peace Initiative needs to be put forward. Something needs to be in reaction to the Arab Peace Initiative. Sufficient or not, that is not enough to say. It is more important to react and to say we do want peace. Here is how we see it. Presented to the Arab public opinion. I'm so happy to hear this. I'm delighted. Thank you. This is a great, heartwarming. Thank you. And you know why I'm saying this? Because right now, we saw last 2 days the problems on the borders between Egypt and Israel. Now, I can tell you for a fact that Egyptians, Muslim Brotherhood, Salafis, do not want conflict with Israel. It is beyond rational. It is a dark corridor and an uncertain future. It will drag I'm talking from the Egyptian point of view. It's impossible to do. But I fear sincerely that we could be dragged into a conflict by many such incidents that happen on the border. And we should not wait for this to happen. Something needs to be, we should preempt this by building a much stronger, much more credible vision of the future.
Is on your side.
No, I'm sorry. It is actually, no, I am just mentioned the Israeli Peace Initiative as one. There is responsibilities on everybody's side. But you are a stable society, you are an open society, and you have the ability to actually provide a vision. You made a vision for yourself, and you realize your dream here in a country in such a short period, which is amazing. I mean, it demands respect, and it has respect in the Arab opinion, by the way. It has the respect of Arabs, what you have done here. But it is difficult to express this respect if there is such a lack of understanding of where do you see the vision in the neighborhood, where do you see yourself in the neighborhood. Right now, from an Arab point of view, unfortunately, we see a very paranoid state where, understandably, but without a vision of how can we live without that paranoia. So I will stop here and...
Salama, Salama, in his interview published today in Al Hayat, King Abdullah is speaking about his insistence to keep open channels with Israel. And on the other hand, there is no Jordanian ambassador in Tel Aviv for the last years, 3 years. The hostility towards Israel in the Jordanian streets is quite obvious. And still, King Abdullah is also sending a message of frustration towards Prime Minister Netanyahu. I think the two gentlemen have not spoken for a long period of time. What should be done to narrow the gaps?
I think that relations between Jordan and Israel, despite the current sense of Cold War, if you like, they remain fundamentally good, in the sense that it is in Jordan's strategic interest to keep good relations with Israel and to maintain the peace treaty between the two countries as a guarantee of Jordan's sovereignty and independence and also future. However, in response as to why King Abdullah does not feel on good terms with Netanyahu, Prime Minister of Israel, I think I would quote psychologist Daniel Kahneman, who said yesterday that hoax in Israel always win the argument, even if they don't deserve it. And he also said, although they sound sensible, they are often irrational. And in Jordan, there are people who feel that putting priority for security over peace has been a strategy of the Netanyahu governments, and not only government. And that has created a sense of a disconnect with people who feel that justice and peace are a prerequisite for security. So, and I would like here to quote from former Secretary of State Henry Kissinger yesterday, something I thought was positive, which is when he referred to Israel's need to make peace based on justice and equilibrium. And I assume here he's meaning justice for the Palestinians and equilibrium with the Palestinians, in the sense that you need to empower the weak in order to be able to bring them to a level where they can make a deal with you. And that is something actually commendable that I heard yesterday. Now, would that actually make a difference? I think Jordan has peace treaty with Israel. It wants to have better relations with Israel, but often it seems from a Jordanian perspective that a government in Israel that speaks of the need for peace, but at the same time continues to build illegal settlements in territories it's supposed to exchange with the Palestinians in a two-state solution, does not instill confidence in people who believe in peace. You either want to make peace based on a two-state solution, or you want to continue to swallow lands belonging to other people who want to establish their own state. This is the logic in Jordan and throughout the Arab world. And I'm afraid, as we've heard earlier, Israel has not responded properly to the Arab initiative. They could have countered with their own initiative that they see as more viable. But it is important to note that time is not on Israel's side or anybody's side in terms of the Palestinian-Israeli issue being increasingly marginalized due to bigger concerns and strategic concerns in the region, in the eyes of the superpowers as well as countries in the region. And if I may add just one more thing, and I think this is not new, this marginalization started with the 2003 war that toppled the Iraqi regime. The rise of Iran's influence in Iraq and in the region has made priorities not only for countries like the United States, but also priorities for regional countries. Saudi Arabia, Jordan, the Gulf states are now more concerned with the Iranian influence and threat of instability than they are with the Arab-Israeli conflict. I actually stopped calling it Arab-Israeli conflict, and now I call it Israeli-Palestinian conflict, because most Arab countries, if not all, have more pressing concerns, security concerns, as well as strategic concerns than the Palestinian-Israeli. So this marginalization might be a good thing. Maybe finally the Israelis will realize that they have to make peace with their own neighbors, regardless of what other people think, because the other countries in the region have their own priorities which do not necessarily, comply or go along with the Israeli priorities vis-à-vis the Palestinians. Thank you.